Great Depression hits, and that's even worse for the people in Germany. But they're basically dead broke, and they're essentially hopeless. And the reason why that's important is that because when people are hopeless, they'll go to any extreme. Okay, I think that is that philosophy. They attempt to portray that philosophy in the in the Dark Knight movie. If you kids have ever seen that, Batman with Joker, you kids have seen that. Christian Bale, Heath Ledger, right? The Joker's character tries to play out this ideology, and because it's a movie, it goes well for the hero. But in real life, when people are in complete desperate situations, they will go to whatever extreme. For the Germans, that just so happened to be either Nazis on one side, or like they had options between the Nazis or the communists. Now, Germany's pretty close to Russia. In 1917, there is a civil, in 1914 to 17, there's a civil war in Russia, which led to the death of 10 million people. They also executed their royal family. And then by 1944, the Germans were likely aware of how the country started to descend, how the wealthiest peasant farmers, the kulaks, they had their land and wealth redistributed, the starvation of, I don't know if they would have been aware of this, the Holodomor, the starvation of the Ukrainians, but they basically saw how communism just tore this country apart and sent it downhill, right? Like Russia was pretty, aside from the fact that they had millions of people, they're pretty irrelevant in World War II, to some extent. I shouldn't say that fully, but they weren't exactly technologically as advanced as the rest of the countries, and part of that was just, how communism played its role. But Russia played an important role in terms of just throwing millions of soldiers to the front line, and like a lot of Russian people died in World War II. It's terrible. So in Germany, you're basically stuck between two extremes of Nazism or communism, and everyone in the country is dead broke, right? So we talked about inflation, printing money. So the German government thought it'd be a bright idea, like, hey, we're broke, we'll just print money, we'll give it to our citizens. Well, what that essentially led to was people basically going to buy groceries and paying with cash in like wheelbarrows, right, to get like bread, milk, and eggs, right? So their currency was completely worthless. Okay, and I have this in some of my grade 12 slides, just how bad it got. People were, I heard this real ridiculous example, that people were using money as like wallpaper because it was just worthless. Right. Right. And so it'd just be the same as like, okay, if I gave everyone a gold medal, that gold medal doesn't mean much. But if I gave you a second and third gold medal and everyone has 3 gold medals from 3 events, then you're going to use it as a coaster, right? It's really worthless, right? Unless it's solid gold, then it's not, okay? So with the Bretton Woods Agreement, this attempt to kind of solve this discommunication or lack of communication with the world and create more economic unity in the world, they came up with a couple major ideas here. So the Bretton Woods Agreement, or BWA, deals with some international trade, so expanding free markets, so basically including everyone in the discussions of who to trade and deal with, right? They created the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and the World Bank. You're going to be dealing with 2 of those for sure, and then the third one. I don't know if we're going to get to the third one. Okay. The International Monetary System, so they made some changes here. They established a new international monetary system, which was designed to promote international trade. Again, the idea being that the more countries you're trading with and the more countries you become reliant on, the less likely you are to go to war with them. Okay, which is essentially what happened in World War II. They're a little defunct, they're separate, they didn't necessarily feel they needed one another, so it was easy to go to war with one another. Okay, the BWA intends to reverse that, make them more reliant on one another. It also wanted to regulate currency, so part of the problem, as mentioned, was Germany was printing off money. Their money was completely worthless, and so that dramatically negatively impacted people in Germany. If you regulate that at the international level, then hopefully you don't run into problems of some countries making really stupid decisions with their currency and making it completely worthless, and then trading with that person would become irrelevant. Yes. Yes, you may. Okay. So that also dealt with the gold standard, which we'll discuss in a moment, but they determined a fixed rate of $35 US for an ounce of gold. Does anyone know how much an ounce of gold costs now? Anyone?
$30-something. More than that.
Is it in the thousands?
Yeah, I think it's 2,000 Canadian. I don't know if it's 2,000 US or 2,000 Canadian, but an ounce of gold costs about $2,000 now, right? It used to cost $35 back in 1944, but I'm sure not many people had $35 to their name back then.
Oh,
Okay.
that's where I remember it from.
Okay. So the gold standard essentially just means that governments were limited by how much gold they had. Okay, so you could only have a certain amount of money depending on how much gold you had. If you wanted to print more money, you needed more gold. Less gold, less money. Your currency is just worth less. And the reason for that being is because gold is real tangible wealth. Right? Gold is actually a very fascinating substance. It can be used for many things, and it has very many unique properties, or very fascinating properties. If they needed more money, then they would borrow it by printing more money and making their money worth less, so their currency dropped. If you print more money, their currency is less valuable, which means that the money supply is inflated. There's more physical cash than there is gold. Okay, and this is kind of complicated stuff to understand, so if you're not getting it, it's fine. We'll skip over that little bracket there. But anyways, after World War II, the rest of the world became reliant on the US dollar and their standard for international trade, investing, and predictability. Again, the goal is stability. So basically, if someone wanted to make an international trade, like if a country wanted to buy and sell stuff, they would take their currency, they would convert it to US dollars, and then buy with that. Right? They couldn't buy directly with their currency. So people were trading using the US dollar. And then here's just a little history of the Canadian dollar against the US dollar. So in 1948, one Canadian dollar was about 99 cents US. So it's pretty much a 1-to-1 ratio. You fast forward to 2023, and that number might actually be different now, but more or less right now, if you take $1 in America, one Canadian dollar to America, you get 76 cents American. So which currency do you think is stronger? American, right? So our money is worth less than their money. Does anyone want to take a guess at why that might be? Why do you think our dollars are worth less?
They have more resources.
Not just resources. What do they do with their resources? They have more economic output, right? So America is producing more stuff economically. Their currency is very strong. Canada, not so much. Okay. Why do you think the US dollar was selected as the standard?
Very stable.
Perhaps very stable. Any other reasons why at the end of World War II they would have chosen the US currency?
They're powerful.
The country is very powerful, right? The United States played a significant role in ending the war. They also played a significant role in World War I and World War II, supplying the Allies with equipment, so they were very financially well off. Okay, that's probably main reasons why the US dollar was selected. Just more related to Social 30. If you have a fixed rate for how much your money costs, do you think that's more government control or less government control? If it's fixed.
If it's like always gonna be the same.
If it's set by someone, basically.
Less control.
You sure?
But like they can't change it.
But someone is setting that rate,
Oh.
right? So I would assume a fixed government rate is more government control, whereas if it's flexible, which it became,
Early.
then it's less, right? Because it's more reliant on the market, right? So factors of, oh, this country is doing really well. A lot of people are trying to buy their currency. They must have a strong currency. They must have a strong economy. Okay. World Bank, just to quickly look over this. So the World Bank was developed in order to provide loans to less developed countries with financial difficulties. The World Bank does require loan receiving countries to meet certain criteria, both politically and economically. Okay, so you'll kind of expand on these political ideas in grade 11 and 12, but the World Bank requires politically, so you need to be politically stable. Okay, you need to have consistency, some sort of plan in place. There must be rule of law, so that's a very classical liberal idea. That's more on the well, we'll just leave that. But you need to have good, strong legal frameworks. You need to have property rights, good governance. So you got to be transparent. You got to be accountable. Limited corruption or mismanagement and misuse of money. On the economic side, you need to have a development need if you want to receive a loan. So you can't just say, hey, can we borrow like 500 mil just so we're 500 mil richer? You say, hey, can we borrow 500 million or $1 billion, whatever the money is, to, let's say, build these highways between these cities, whatever they decide. It's got to be economically viable, so you can't just say, I don't know, we want, like, whatever your plan is, it has to be something that's going to help the economy, right? Potentially make money, and then some sort of socioeconomic context. Okay, so are you trying to reduce poverty or increase economic growth? The IMF, the job of the IMF is to monitor exchange rates and provide short-term financial assistance. It works in relationship to the World Bank. Mostly it relies on surveillance, so it watches the economic situation of each country, and then if things get bad, it like kind of addresses that country, potentially gives them tips to solve that. Technical assistance and training, so providing countries with the knowledge and skills for banking and financial